There are two scripture readings this morning. The first one is Ruth 1, chapters, verse 8 through 19, inclusive Bible. But Naomi told each of her daughters-in-law, "Return to your mother's house. May the Most High care for you with the same kindness that you have cared for your dead and for me. May the Most High give you security and true fulfillment and lead you to new spouses." Then she kissed them both, but they wept loudly and said to her, "No, we want to go back with you to the land of your people." But Naomi said to them, "Go back, my daughters. Why do you want to come with me? I have no more sons inside me that you can take as spouses. No, you must go back, my daughters. I am too old to marry again. Even if I told you there was still hope for me, if I were to find a spouse and have children tonight, would you be willing to wait until they are grown to marry them? Would you refuse? No, if you did that, it would tear me apart, for the hand of the Most High has been raised against me." And once more, they wept loudly. Then Orpah kissed Naomi and returned to her people, but Ruth stayed by her side. Naomi said to Ruth, "Look, your sister-in-law has returned to her people and to the God of her ancestors. You too must go. Follow your sister-in-law." But Ruth said to her, "Please don't ask me to leave you and turn away from your company. I swear to you, where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I'll die there too, and I will be buried there beside you. I swear, may God, Yahweh be my witness and judge, that not even death will keep us apart." Seeing that Ruth was determined to accompany her, Naomi said no more. And together they walked until they came to Bethlehem. When they arrived, the town was abuzz with gossip because of them. The townspeople said to each other, "Could this sad person be Naomi or Joy?" The second reading is Ecclesiastes 4, verse 9 to 12. Two people are better than one, for they get better return for their work. For if one flags, the other gives support. But woe to the solitary person who falls and has no one to provide support. If two sleep together, they keep each other warm. How can a person stay warm while alone? One alone is easily overpowered. Two provide protection for each other, and a rope of 3 strands is not easily broken. The contemporary reading, When Will You Be Back? By Reverend Sarah Speed. Yesterday, I visited an old man in the hospital. I was not the only one. We talked on the elevator ride down. Has he gained any weight? Will he stay in that room? Does he like the food? Has he called? All the man wanted to know was, when will you be back? We asked that question in 1,000 different ways, every single day. Our hearts leaning over themselves, bending to get closer to love. We say, text me when you're home. Call me when you're free. One more kiss. I love you all the time. When will you be back? What we really mean is, I can't go through life alone. Please don't let me go through life alone.
way back on my first Sunday here, on Palm Sunday, I talked about Jesus' counter-protest to empire, with his procession coming into town with palms. They were waving the palms. They were laying down their cloaks. This church knows about participating in protests. As I've said before, I don't have details, and I will give you details. Mark on your calendars January 18th, which is a Saturday. That is the Women's March, which is happening in D.C., and it will be happening here in San Francisco. I don't have details yet, but I keep checking. I checked yesterday, and I didn't see anything pop up yet, but there will be something going on. And we will be there. Those who are willing and able, I will be there, absolutely. Isolation and marginalization of trans folks by empire is something that we are continuing to see with the cases. There's 26 states right now that have laws on the books or working on laws on the books for banning gender-affirming healthcare or bathroom bans, where you have to go into the bathroom based on the gender of your birth. We've seen it in public schools, and now we're seeing it in the US Congress, which is insane. Does anyone remember the I Will Go With You campaign? A number of years ago, there were t-shirts stuff because of the initial bathroom bans. I remember I had a t-shirt, and I went to the MCC General Conference in Victoria, British Columbia, and actually when I flew up there, I actually wore a shirt that said, I will go with you. And actually I remember I had Michael Cronin take a picture of me in front of the restroom at the Seattle airport, and I posted that on social media. Being connected with community and supporting our siblings is essential. In the story today by Ruth, with Ruth and Naomi, Ruth said, I will support you. You know, and right now, as I mentioned before during the prayers, right now the Supreme Court of the United States is hearing a case in Tennessee on the Tennessee ban of gender-affirming care for youth under 18 years old. You know, and right now is most likely that this will be uphold the ban. And this will set a terrible precedent. One of the challenges that we're seeing right now, and especially since the pandemic and things are opening up again, is social disconnection. Yeah. Feeling of isolation and loneliness. And research shows that 1 in 2 Americans struggles with social dislocation and loneliness. I was really surprised to hear that. And a former Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, calls loneliness an epidemic. According to some research, loneliness can take a toll on our bodies very similarly to 15 cigarettes a day. That is incredible as far as that, something that is actually you're not putting into your body a chemical or something, but it is something that is actually impacting us. Because I know for myself, I learned in high school that worry will cause me to have gastrointestinal distress. And I really tried to not worry. Of course, then dealing with anxiety later in life was a very different thing altogether. But one of the things that I did learn is that worry was going to cause me to be sick. And loneliness, here is another thing where it's going to cause us to be not feeling well. Cultivating a compassionate community like Naomi and Ruth did can be the antidote to this epidemic of loneliness. Will you pray with me? Gracious Spirit, as we gather today on the second Sunday of Advent, we acknowledge the beautiful diversity of our identities, and we celebrate the vibrant tapestry of our queer lives. Infuse our hearts with your boundless love and peace. Remind us that we are all created in your image, fully and authentically, regardless of our gender or sexuality. Guide our ears to hear your message with open minds, and empower us to embrace the fullness of who we are, both within these walls and out in the world beyond. Amen. Ruth went against cultural norms of the time when she told Naomi, I will stay here. I will go where you go. I will live where you live. Your people and your God will be mine as well. This was against cultural norms. I mean, Naomi was telling her, you should go. You're not going to be able to stay here and get married to any other sons of mine because I don't have any other sons. You know, her husband, Naomi's husband had died, Ruth's husband had died, and they were both grieving. They were grieving widows. But they found a way of creating a new familial structure. In that time, it was about, there was a man and his wife and their families. And if the man died, then the wife would get married again, so she would have another husband to provide for her, take care of her, and be there for her. This was not the case with Ruth and Naomi. This chosen family was very similar to what Jesus was putting together with the disciples and all the other people, because it wasn't just the 12 disciples, it was Mary and Martha and all these, just to name those three women, but then all these other people that followed them around from town to town. It wasn't just the 12 and Jesus. It was a much larger family. It was a community of loving human beings. Ruth and Naomi's mutuality was a beautiful sight to behold, and this is something that is deeply needed as an example in our fractured world today. It also reminds us that we are not meant to do this alone. One of the shadow sides about this season of holiday cheer, there's lights everywhere, and people singing songs. There was a gay men's chorus yesterday, and I know some people went to that, and lots of festivities and joy. And joy is an essential thing that we need to embrace and celebrate now. And part of this, too, is that there is this loneliness and isolation that many people feel during this time of year for various reasons. Rejection from our birth families, or we reject them because of who they voted for or how they treat us. And then there's also the isolation just due to distance and circumstance. Because I live here and they live elsewhere, and there's no way for the distances to be made smaller. As I mentioned before, Ruth and Naomi were both grieving. And that grief brought them together. It helped to bind them in that grief. We are all grieving as well, for various reasons. Some people are grieving because of the election results. Other people are grieving because of the loss of a relationship, the loss of a loved one. I know that this church is probably, some of us more so than others, are still grieving the loss of 150 Eureka Street, which was 9 years ago. Grief has no timeline or deadline. It continues in our lives, regardless. How we walk through it together can make a difference. Connecting in our grief can help us to develop a deeper bond with each other. And I know that during the lockdown, the pandemic, and also the year and a half before I got here, y'all were without a pastor for that time, and that loss helped you to connect even more deeply. I heard this, I've seen this in the conversations and just the examples of things that people have talked about. And that's an example of what we can do together when we connect more deeply. Ecclesiastes gave us an example of mutuality. Two are better than one. For if they fall, one will lift up the other. It also mentioned about the strands of three are stronger and harder to break apart. Perhaps, Ecclesiastes was talking about, the queerness of some of our relationships with thruples and just polyamory. That's a whole different sermon altogether. However, when we are connected by love and mutuality, we can do almost anything. We can do almost anything. The book of Ruth is one of only 2 books in the Bible about women. The other one was the book of Esther, and that was about a woman who became a queen through marriage, and she chose to use her privilege as queen to instill changes for her people, the Israelites. And here in this book of Ruth, it's about marginalized women creating a chosen family that connects Naomi's family, connects her family line to the eventual birth of King David, who is an ancestor of Jesus. So in this particular case, that's probably one of the reasons why this book is in there, because of the lineage of connecting from the before time to the birth of Jesus. Our connection with others is felt and seen when we see each other after an absence. When you've been away from either from your family or from a dear friend that you've known for a long time, and you haven't seen them, whether you on the phone or you actually see each other in person, there's a brilliance of love and warmness in our hearts when we're reconnected with those people that we really long to be with. And our contemporary reading talked about that. Text me when you get home. Call me when you're free, because I long to hear your voice. Or I've got something I need to talk to you about, and I want your wisdom and your strength. And when will you be back? As a hospice chaplain, I heard that from time to time. When I was visiting someone who was in a care facility, who was engaging in conversation, they were not deep in the mires of dementia or Alzheimer's, and they were able to engage in conversation, and they were lonely. And when I was visiting with Bill on Friday, I told him, I said, I will be back to visit you next week. Before he even asked me, when will you be back? And one of the things that he said to me, and he says it's not just about me, but he really appreciates visits from friendly faces that know him and care for him. His friend Steve visits him on a regular basis. And I think with any situation, dealing with the loss of stuff, the security and sanctity of our own homes can be a challenge for any of us. I know for me, it can be as well. Isolation and loneliness is what is going to be our biggest challenge. Empire wants to separate us and isolate us from each other because it knows that we are stronger together. Absolutely. We are stronger together, and empire knows this. And last week I talked about Mary and her cousin Elizabeth. Once Mary heard that her cousin was pregnant, she set out to stay with her for a while, as the reading says. In Luke chapter 1, verse 39 through 44, it tells us about the connection between them, that as soon as Mary arrived and called out to her cousin that she was there, the baby inside Elizabeth's room leaped. And as this happened, Elizabeth shouted out to her cousin, "Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb." There is that deep connection. And we also learn in this story, too, that Jesus and John the Baptist were cousins. More connection. Not just familial, but also in the ministry that they did together. Ruth and Naomi were connected in their grief, and they moved through it together. Mary went to be with her cousin because of the delicate nature of her pregnancy and her relationship with Joseph, her betrothed. Because she was there for a number of months, and then she came back and she was almost ready to have a child. Actually, they were That's another story for later this month when we get upon Christmas. They were helping each other by connecting with each other. In our pull yourself up by our bootstraps society, now of course I lost my place. Choosing community and supporting each other goes against that. Dismantling this oppressive and marginalized practices and policies of empire is at the heart of the teachings of Jesus. It's not about, oh, you got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and do what you can do for yourself, and we'll just, we're not going to worry about you. You can do it. You can do it. Whereas Jesus is like saying, no, I will help you. We will do this together. And that is what's important, that we need to create a queer utopia of mutuality, cooperation, and radical love that can be seen as being diametrically opposed to the practices of empire. And that is needed now more especially than ever. I will close with this. Prayer for you all. Beloveds, you are not alone on this winding journey. May the companionship of fellow sojourners reflect the love of the one who, in becoming flesh, chose to journey alongside us. May the quilt of life warm you from the chill of isolation, and may the Spirit move you to compassion as you cultivate community, even in times of uncertainty. Know that we can't go this alone. Amen.
For so many years now I've been wondering endlessly, why is the earth so round, and yet there's only one for all of us. If we are all living so divided, why the skies and ocean truly for? Why is the sun shining so brightly on us all if we don't yet meet each other's eyes? So much sorrow pulling us all closer towards to the end. How much love each night, each moment must we share with tenderness? Why must we live always so divided when the earth is calling us as one? If the earth is one and made for all of us, all together we are going to live. All together we are going to live. Why must we live always so divided when the earth is calling us as one? If the earth is made one and for all of us, all together we are going to live. All together we are going to live.
Good morning. Is the recording paused? Okay, thank you. It is now, okay.